Welcome to Make Your Shit, a creative empowerment podcast. I'm your host, Kyle F. Andrews. On today's show, we have Theo Brown. Theo is a LA-based director with a deep love of intimate character stories within the science fiction genre. His latest feature film, An Electric Sleep, is a 10-time Festival Award winner, including the Best Feature at the Culver City Film Festival, Best Sci-Fi at the Silicon Valley Film Festival, and Best Soundtrack at the LA Sci-Fi Film Fest. He also directed Smoky Mountain Rescue web series, which won the Silver Telly for Best Web Series, as well as the Grand Jury Prize at the San Diego International Kids Film Festival. From Star Trek marathons to Spider-Man comics, Theo's love of sci-fi inspires him to keep telling stories that audiences across the globe have resonated with. Theo, welcome to the studio.
That was beautiful. Thank you so much for that.
You're welcome. I always love to give a solid introduction.
That was super. 10 out of 10.
Great. Great. It's great listening about yourself, isn't it?
Yeah, you can just say it again, actually.
I will. I'll repeat it. Well, actually, I want to talk about your movie a little bit because An Electric Sleep, which I watched and I really enjoyed.
Thank you.
Oh my goodness, a low-budget sci-fi thriller. I'm going to quickly share what An Electric Sleep is about for the audience to have a little bit of context. An Electric Sleep follows teen Margot, who, infected with a life-limiting illness, tortures the two scientists that created the disease for a cure. Oh my goodness, does she ever. However, she risks losing everything as surveilling mercenaries close in, tasked with keeping agency conspiracies under wraps. So, a sci-fi low-budget thriller. How did you get involved with this project?
Oh, man. So, at the inception, a good friend of mine, Ben Taylor, he's also the producer and the primary writer on the project. We had came out here to LA, chasing a dream, trying to figure out whatever that means and stuff like that. And there was a point where we realized that we wanted to kind of get out of making shorts and getting to feature work. Obviously, everybody has their own path, but that was something for us that we noticed with a lot of filmmakers that we admired. And from there, we were kind of like throwing ideas at the board, what sticks, what can we execute, and things like that. And Ben, had the idea of An Electric Sleep. Obviously we're both big, Philip K. Dick fans, sci-fi fans, and things like that. And that was the inception of where it came from. He's a producer. He produces a ton of stuff, and he approached me directly. I was like, yeah, man, let's do it. So that was really it, yeah.
It was a really cool collaboration, too. It seemed like, watching indie films, it's always like, what is this going to look like? But it looked like a project that was far above the sort of low-budget arena that you were playing in. So kudos to you on that. That said, you made a sci-fi low-budget thriller.
Yeah.
Was it as daunting a challenge as you expected it to be?
What makes you think it would be daunting? Why would you say something?
Having made a film or two myself, knowing that, you've only got 14 hours in a day to make magic happen. So, how was it? Was it easier than you expected it to be? Where did it land?
Man, I think the best thing that I kind of had going into this was with just like the wealth of knowledge and stuff out there. That was so helpful for me to like kind of set my expectations. You know what I mean? So like making a film, is hard. Making an indie film is hard. Budget, sci-fi, all this stuff. Like you're just kind of like adding, wrenches to the engine, so to speak. But that said, it was definitely the most challenging thing I've ever done. But I think it's because I kind of came from a place of, running, 100-yard dashes or whatnot. And then all of a sudden you run a marathon where it's like the only thing really in common is like you wear running shoes, but they're two totally different approaches for making shorts to features that I found.
Yeah. It's almost like an endurance trial.
Yeah. No, and at every single, junction, right? Your creative stuff on set, behind the scenes, doing produce, like everything is just scaled up so much more. So even when things are going great, I was still just finding more and more about like myself, more and more just about the process, about like the story. And then of course, you shoot it and then you get in post and then you're just another marathon in a way, and again, just like so much learning and things like that. So that was kind of like my overall experience all the way like through distribution, but it was so invaluable. Learning that process like for myself, like almost like the film was almost like a Trojan horse for me to kind of like understand so much more and stuff like that.
It's an opportunity to level up, right?
Absolutely. Oh, absolutely. In every way, yeah.
It's great to see how you leveled up with this, because I'm not familiar with your work prior, but what I do know is that visual effects can be, they either make or break you sometimes.
Yeah.
The visual effects in this film are pretty astounding,
Yeah.
especially considering when you hear low budget, you're like, well, it's just going to be like somebody's going to write something on a whiteboard, and that's going to be like, oh, that's where the secret formula is. But you actually have visuals, like the dude's eye has a little machine in it that projects a AR screen in front of his face, and it looks authentic. It looks really cool. Let's talk the VFX a bit, because I think especially people who want to make genre work don't know how necessarily to make genre work in a low budget. So what was the VFX plan like for you? Did you have something storyboarded going in, or did you wing it and then put everything in post? How was that process for you?
Yeah, definitely. We had such a massive budget that we just winged it, the entire
right?
time.
Millions of dollars is nice, isn't it?
Yeah. We didn't even know what we were doing. So I guess before I say that, I've got to call out Brady Griffin was our VFX soup and did all the VFX shots. Just incredible friend of mine. We went to school together. Man, like he did all the shots. And then my editor, Ralph Jean-Pierre, who was just like an older brother than me, he just finished up Tokyo Vice. He's an editor on there. He's like a work editor, worked on like a lot of M. Night Shyamalan stuff like that. Because something I'm personally very grateful for is to be able to work with people who are far better at their job than I am at mine, because they not only will help me like explain my vision to myself, but like they can also see like I don't want to say gaps, but like fill in the spaces for those things. And so now directly answer your question, I knew when, by like the first, second, third draft of the script, I was like, okay, if we're going to have these VFX shots, what is the best way to practically shoot them? Thinking about what that post-production process would be. So, like, there was a lot of things, as in, a lot of the VFX happens. Like, there's the talent, VFX effect, camera, right? So like that cuts down immediately on, 90% of, like the rotoscoping and stuff like that you would hear from like a lot of VFX houses when they talk about that kind of stuff. Utilizing those things in a way, or, like an item like disappearing, appearing, and things like that. It was easier just for us to establish a certain visual like VFX language and things like that, not to get too much into the weeds again, but like the main character, Dr. Wallace's heads-up display kind of AR thing, we knew that it was going to be similar to like our antagonist kind of thing, because we're like, if these both came from a kind of like same baseline, and they both grow in their own way, I was able to communicate that with Brady far ahead of time, like before shooting. I was like, hey, play with this. Here's the things that we need. Like for this scene, it just has to have A, B, and C. Besides that, you do you, and I'm not going to get in your way. And also, like obviously due to our budget and things like that, this was not a lot of seeing a shot, here's notes. Like it was, I'd probably say for 98% of it, like what Brady gave is what was used. But of course, I had to like learn like what a VFX spotting session was. And I remember with my editor, with Ralph, he had asked me, he's like, hey man, like how many VFX shots do you think you have in the project? And I was like, I don't know, not too much, maybe like 20. And he like looked at me and he was just like, we're gonna have this session. And at the time I was like, I have no idea what that is. And I remember going through it and, he was like, he was working on it. I think he had just finished up Lost in Space or something like that. He was on the show Lost in Space. And he was like, episode Lost in Space probably has like, 340 40 VFX shots. He's like, you have 312. And I was like, man, you were just saying numbers that I don't know.
I'm just here to direct,
You're
man.
just making up stuff, you know what I mean? Like, I can throw numbers out too, and stuff. But like, again, like that just showed, I was, again, so grateful for Ralph, you know, like helping me through that. And then being able to talk with Brady, you know, going for like more of the abstract. It needs to feel like this. It needs to do this to like getting the actual shots. And then, of course, you know, when you're on set and props to Mikkel, who plays Wallace, you know, there's moments like at the end where they're just rapidly tapping. And I was just like, man, you've just got to trust me. Like, we're going to match what you're doing. I just know I need you to do a couple of taps, swipes, you know, like kind of like walk up to us like, hey, you're going into an operating system, but it's something like that, you know, that doesn't really exist. You know, obviously this is before like, you know, Apple Visions kind of stuff like that really hit mainstream. And he just sold it, you know, like he was saying these lines, you know what I mean? Like while swiping and expanding, and then Brady, you know, able to like make it be so seamless, you know. And then we use RKM Color, just Ryan and Becky over there, RKM Color, just incredible humans first and phenomenal colorists. And throughout that process, they were so helpful with me, you know, like, how do I give VFX, you know, to like them? And then they were able to, you know, kind of like use certain like, you know, film emulations and things like that. Like we already kind of established like certain looks that we wanted, but I think what they did and tied it all together makes it really feel so much more seamless, like, you know, almost like blurring the edges to like a hard digital kind of look and things like that made the film, make it look like a film.
The quality really, you know, it displays itself.
Yeah.
And one of the things that is clear is that you had a lot of trust on that set from a lot of the people who were working with you. Where does trust fit in with your collaboration? How important is it to the collaboration for you?
Man, for me, I love collaboration. I mean, I think as a director, like that's my favorite thing probably about filmmaking. Is just you get a chance to work with amazing people. I mean, my DP, Tim Banks, who's phenomenal, we went to school together, you know, 13, 14 years ago and stuff like that. So, you know, he's worked, I think, on just about every single short I've ever made and things like that. So, not even just like a shorthand, but I mean, going to the trust of like, he knows, you know, the things that I'm looking for, and I know what like he's going to be looking for. So if there's ever a moment, for instance, where he's like, we need to do it like this. Like, I'm probably not going to push back because he knows me better than, you know, I know myself and a lot of those things. And that goes from, you know, him, the editor, obviously like the relationship with the producers, to like my composer, you know, Ike Nichols, man, just...
The music was pretty spectacular.
Oh my
if I do
goodness.
say so.
Yeah, and he did a lot of like... You know, you're listening to music, and I'm not a big, like, you know, using, like, you know, temp music or something like that. Like, I know it needs to feel like this. It's like that doesn't really help, I think, for me as a filmmaker, because it's like, oh, if you put in Gladiator music, of course it's going to feel good. It's Gladiator and all those intangibles that come with that. But, you know, for Ike, you know, I always like letting my composer and editor like read the script actually even before we shoot, because they're going to be speaking a language that I don't speak fluently, you know, and stuff. And I trust them as a storyteller to do that. And you know, when you're listening to the music and you're like, oh, this is amazing. And he's like, yeah, this theme is actually so-and-so's theme, but I played it backwards because she's confused in this moment. And you're just like, what? Like, I didn't, you know, like, I can't think like that, right? Like, so anyways, it's just, collaboration throughout the board is just so important for me.
Also, it kind of strikes me that the way you talk about it, there's always, to me, been a difference between a director and an auteur. An auteur tends to have a vision that they're going to get no matter what. And I find directors who actually want to, as you said, collaborate to something brilliant. The collaboration is the thing that makes it better. It is the fact that you've brought in all of these other voices. You co-wrote this script, in fact, or rather, your producer Ben wrote it, and you came in and you helped.
Yeah.
And it's like that's kind of where where the movie makes its magic happen. It is in the, well, here's my vision, here's your vision, and here's where we're combining them.
It's absolutely. Yeah, I mean, I would love to say that I'm good enough that I can be an island, but that is not my ministry. I'm a big believer in iron sharpening iron, and going into these things. I'm pretty dull, so I'm grateful a lot of people are able, to kind of sharpen me and the film along the way. And I mean, yeah, you look at the final product, and I remember we played. I think the very first festival we played at was, I think, Culver City. And something that Ben and I always joked about was, we were like, hey, we're making this movie. Our goal is, get distro. That was like the plan, right? When you hear so many statistics, it's like, 80% of all video consumed is, on screens, 10 inches and smaller on phones and tablets.
Everybody write that down. Everybody write that down. You need to know that.
But the ironic thing for us is we were always like, we're not going to have to worry about playing in the theater. We know where we're going, right? Playing on an iPhone. This is where we're going. And so, of course, we get into that festival and then, it's at the, the AMC in Culver City. And we're just we don't know what this is going to look like. We've never seen it on the screen. We didn't master it for that. And that was, talk about a moment of you did the best that you could have. And then when it's on the big screen and everybody's you're seeing the VFX, you're seeing the big screen, everybody's like, wow, this looks great. And we're just it's working. We never even could have dreamed of that kind of thing, seeing those effects like that, on that screen. And of course, people are just coming in and just watching it as a movie, and getting that kind of validation. That was one of those things, again, we were just so grateful for just those collaborators that they're just so skilled in front of and behind the camera, at what they do.
I'm really happy for you because it does sound like this film was either as successful or more successful than you had intended it to be, and that's great. The success is great. I want to twist it a little bit because part of this is success is great, but working towards success involves a lot of failure. Yeah. It involves a lot of rejection, especially in this industry. How do you have a way to deal with rejection? Have you built up an armor for things like that? How do you cope with failure?
How do I cope with failure and rejection? Well, I worked as I've kind of stopped now, but also since moving out here, I started PAing and then working as an AD for 5-6 years. So I think that my hide is pretty toughened, by, ADing a couple of features and a lot of commercial work and stuff. So that helps. But, man, I think especially when it's when it's your first project, failure is really, for me, it was just I just learned something new about the process. And I'm learning something at literally every step of the marathon. So I think I would always kind of personally focus is it's not that it's a failure, but it's more what new thing am I about to learn? You finish shooting day one, you're oh, well, what did we learn today? What can we do tomorrow? And I think the goal is just that, by the end of the project, when you go into your next project, the only failure is if I repeated the same mistake that I should have learned a lesson from prior. And I think I've been able to learn a lot from that. And
I think that's important, reframing the conversation for yourself so that you don't call yourself failure, you don't call what you've done failure, but you look at it as an opportunity. Yeah. And that's kind of what happens. And making films work is all about the opportunities that you're given. You cannot plan for everything.
Yeah, and you've made a couple of films, so it's there are 10,000 hours that goes just into making the first film, but then if you think about what's your 10,000 hours in just making films, right? That gets you to just that high end level. And then the 10,000 hours of making films that, we're all just, putting in the work, just trying to better ourselves and better the craft. And, film is the second most expensive art form behind architecture. Wow. There's a lot of people that are involved, so many different levels of different people, and you're just kind of a spider web crossing paths on a big web, So I think, again, all I have to say is for me, I just always try to be hey, check in myself. Am I learning? Am I doing the best that I can? Am I becoming more and more prepared? Am I, Are my conversations getting better? And all that kind of like soft skills, that kind of stuff, just trying to be better at the craft, really. So, yeah.
I love the notion of unpredictability and using that to your benefit. I actually wanted to ask you about something that I find would be a very unpredictable situation, not on an electric sleep, but on a miniseries that you worked on called Smoky Mountain Rescue.
Yeah.
Smoky Mountain Rescue involves, I saw, a dog.
Yeah.
Kids and a dog.
Absolutely.
The two no-goes. You had them both
Easy
at the
breezy.
same time. So working with kids and dogs for folks who may run into that situation or are writing scripts where you have a lead dog, and I'm not going to read those scripts because they always hit me in the heart. But like, what was that like? Was it how did you master the unpredictability of a dog?
Yeah.
And kids?
So going back to that learning thing, here's the thing I still blows my mind about Electric Sleep. We shot in Electric Sleep while we were in post. We shot Smoky Mountain Rescue while we were in post for Electric Sleep.
Oh, wow.
And
so you were not sleeping.
So, no. And my DP, Tim, also worked on Smoky Mountain Rescue. So this was like that perfect kind of thing of like, what did we learn? What can we do better at? So we're better in our crafts, but now it's like, but we have kids and a dog. So, man, that was a unique kind of situation where, your approach to filming is different, right? Like your hours are different. We shot like in and around like Atlanta, and it was based on a book that somebody had. They wanted us to like adopt it, and we worked with a lot of students at my old school at Southern Adventist University in Chattanooga. So again, like very different kind of like paths in a weird way. And then of course you bring in the animals and stuff like that. But the dog, I'm forgetting the dog's real name. I'm sorry, dog. I hope he doesn't hear this.
He's gonna be really. He's gonna call his agent right out. What the heck?
The dog was great. I remember the handler was amazing. Like working with animals. So much of their work is like train and repetition over and over and over and over and over again. We didn't have that kind of budget for this one. So we knew it was more so of like, you only have a certain amount, that's a terrible analogy. You only have a certain amount of bullets in the gun. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. It's like, if I've got to get this wide shot, I've got to get the dog to walk from here to here. That's what we have to focus on. You know what I mean? And we have to capture this moment because there were dogs. So much of it also was just, like holding your breath. Got it, right? And those little things of like, there's a whiff of something in the air. There's a bear in the show, in one of the episodes. And as something as simple as we have to shoot the dog out because once the bear is there and the bear does his thing, bringing the dog back out, the dog's going to smell the bear. And it takes a lot of training for a dog to like smell a large animal and not let that affect the performance. So it was so much of those kinds of nuances working with the animals. The kids were great. I mean, I don't want to say the dog was great, but the kids, on the other hand, they were phenomenal. Like so professional. All of them were just so. They're just so great. I mean, they're not kids now. They're probably like teenagers now. And we had Alpha. He played like the grandfather, Alpha Trevette, I believe his name is. Really, just not just like the emotional core of the show, but also like watching him from the outside in as an actor. Older actor, seasoned. Been in so much stuff. Working, with these young actors, and just he's showing them how to be a professional. But like, you're also a kid. Have fun. We shot that project at a house that was actually an animal rescue.
Oh wow!
So again,
kind of fits.
It was just a perfect, beautiful project. I loved it. Very different than Electric Sleep.
I'll tell you, I think a lot of those projects happen because of the temper of the person. Mm-hmm. So it does. Those situations can go out of control if somebody doesn't have a calm approach to how they're running their set. And so it does sound like, a little bit of the unpredictable is matched by a little bit more of the calm pivots in the moment, which is, I think, an important part of filmmaking. So the movie, An Electric Sleep, is currently available on Tubi, on Amazon Prime, and on Momitu.
Yeah.
What was, distribution is one of those secret magic parts of filmmaking that nobody really talks about, but also is how anybody sees anything. So what was your experience of that like?
Man, well, kudos to Ben again. Like, he was really looking forward to that process of, going to AFM. We went, we had a cut of the movie. It did not have VFX. It did not have color. It did not have really music. Got no bites. But it kind of helped us see, like, okay, this is what we're up against, things like that. We go back again. Once, we've got everything, got the bunch of bites, right? It's all the things that people like you, like Alex Ferrari, you always hear it all the time, right? Like, distribution is just such a, it's a different game altogether.
Almost like politics.
In a way, yeah. These are people who's like, they'll tell you, it's like, hey, look, I don't care about your project. I care if your project can make me money. But hearing someone tell you that, after maybe, for so much of your time, you're just like caring about like the project and the art and the story. And then this person's just like, yeah, that's fine. I don't care. Can I make money off of your project? And like hearing those kind of conversations in person, and then you start, they start promising you everything, and you're just like, oh, this is it. Call the financiers. We did it. And
we made it.
Hey, this thing isn't so hard after all. But like kind of going through that and vetting them, learning through that vetting process. We were with somebody, ended up not working out how we had hoped. But at the time, the gentleman who's over Momitu, his name is Brian, he actually happened randomly to come to the Culver City screening. And he saw the movie, reached out to Ben. He was like, hey, I don't know if you guys have distribution or not. We did at the time. He was like, but I am very interested in this thing. A couple of months later, the person that we were with just didn't able to work out. So, Ben reaches out to Brian. It's like, hey, we're interested, like, let's talk about it. And again, they've just been such a great partner with them, and then, getting it on Prime from there, and now on Tubi. But it was a journey that everybody tells you about, but it was one of those things where I had no idea, Well, I don't even know how you can even prepare yourself for something like that unless, you're selling a movie, because it was just such a different world. They don't teach you about that in film school, like that part of it. But that's equal a part of filmmaking and making a movie and getting your movie out there. So,
Well, now that the movie is out there, I do want to ask you one final question. You are a director of a sci-fi film. You don't often see right now in Hollywood a lot of black filmmakers behind the camera for sci-fi films.
Yeah.
Where do you see sci-fi headed in representation?
I think, that's a really good question. The truth is, black people love sci-fi. Like we love sci-fi. I mean, you can find people that like marched in like the civil rights movement, and they'll quote Star Trek to you, and I think that like what sci-fi does, and I think comedy does this as well, but sci-fi says like, hey, look, here's this picture that you don't necessarily have to focus on, I don't want to say like an issue of the moment, but it can be wrapped up in something different. It's easier hypothetically to talk about like oppression if it's like purple people and blue people, right? And things like that. Like, I think sci-fi can kind of remove that kind of thing. And when I say sci-fi, I'm kind of speaking, Afrofuturism, like kind of all that kind of stuff. I mean, obviously Black Panther, the success of that, what Jordan Peele does, like with things like Nope, where,
genre filmmaking all over. Nia DaCosta is making wonderful films right now.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think that's the fun thing about sci-fi is, J.D. Dillard, what he's done. It's just such a great genre that's only going to keep growing and growing and growing, especially when it comes to, getting representation, specifically, I think, behind the camera as well, as costs of things can start turning down. I think the imaginations of people will just start like increasing and going up. And it's a beautiful genre. I love it. I love watching it. I'm a junkie for it.
You're good at it, and I hope you get more opportunities to do it too, because like it was a really enjoyable project. And at the low budget place, there's only so much you can do. So I hope you get bigger and bigger budgets as you go forward with this.
Oh man, from your lips to Apple TV's ears, because they have just been doubling down on sci-fi. We love it. We love it. Thank you so much, man.
You're welcome. You're welcome, Theo. So again, it is An Electric Sleep. The director is Theo Brown. Theo, thank you for being here. We are gonna. Are you cool sticking around for a second and doing some really stupid questions?
I am looking forward very much
great.
to these questions.
We'll be right back with Theo Brown and stupid fucking questions for smart fucking people. All right, we're back with Theo Brown, and here's some just absolutely stupid fucking questions. All right, Theo, you're a Star Trek guy.
I am.
Who is your favorite Star Trek character?
Oh, man.
And these are rapid fire.
Oh, these are rapid fire?
Rapid fire. You can't think.
Geordie LaForge.
Oh, man. God, LeVar Burton. Just classic, right? What is your movie theater snack of choice?
AMC's got this Hidden Valley Ranch popcorn flavor right now that it's got a hold on my life.
That is the most specific answer I've ever heard. I love that.
Specific question. I love it.
All right. What monster or cryptid would you most like to make a movie about?
There's so many. The Mummy.
The Mummy. Oh, I love that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's one that you can pull more out of for sure.
Yeah. It's just a great franchise. There's just it's fun. I think that's it too. Kind of, the Indiana Jones, all that stuff. Yeah.
They should reboot the series with you in the director's chair. Let's do it. Which Muppet character do you most identify with?
Is this a really rapid fire random question?
Yep.
Like you don't know that I love the Muppets.
I don't, but who doesn't?
No, I mean, I love...
Oh, you love the Muppets.
No, like I ride hard. I have
So who do you ride with? Who's your ride or die?
Oh, man. Rolf.
Oh, my God. Are we just that's same?
Yeah.
Like always been Rolf.
No, man. He's the guy. He's the glue.
He is.
He's the glue guy.
And he was quiet for too long. They shut him up because it was they owed that to Jim Henson.
Yeah.
They made him not talk. And now he's talking again,
I love in the Muppets movie. Sorry, you didn't ask for this. I love in the Muppets movie where they're getting the band all back together and like everybody's got these long montages and they ask Rolf. He's like, hey, man, you in? He's like, sure. Like that's
all you need.
That's his story. He's just like, yeah.
Oh, that's all you need. All right, you're doing chores. What's on in the background?
I'm doing chores.
Chores.
Oh, I'm doing chores.
Yeah, you're doing chores. Let's say you're doing chores, laundry or something.
Yeah.
What's on in the background?
First Things First podcast with Nick Wright talking about my Dallas Mavs, baby, going to the Western Conference Finals.
Well, they're going to lose to the Celtics in the finals, so we'll get there when we get there. Would you rather be stuck in a Groundhog's Day loop where the day never ends, or a slider situation where you have to shift through dimensions to find your way home?
Oh, I'm shifting through dimensions.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's the one. Who cares about learning piano over 1,000 days?
It's not my ministry.
No, that's not it. Did you have a cartoon crush as a kid?
I don't think so. But at the same time, was it Gidget from Chippendale Rescue Rangers? I was a kid.
Was it Gidget? Oh, you said her name perfectly. I don't know.
Listen, man, the 90s were an interesting time back then, And the line from Gargoyles,
Bringing me back.
Yeah.
Bringing me back.
Yeah.
Worf was a voice on that,
He was. Michael Dorn.
Yep.
Oh, man.
Speaking of crushes, my mom had the biggest crush on him. You get to put in the lunch order today. What are we having?
Chipotle. Because film makes me just always think of Chipotle for lunch.
The one. Finally, if you could wake up tomorrow in a city that wasn't Los Angeles, which one would it be?
Cape Town.
Cape Town. Any specific reason?
My girlfriend's family is from Cape Town, and I love it there.
I mean, that's good, and also make the girlfriend happy. So.
Oh yeah, she will love it too.
100%.
But yeah, priorities.
100%.
They have great coffee in Cape Town.
Good to know.
Yeah.
Got to get there sometime. Well, Theo, this has been an amazing chat. So thank you for coming in.
This is great. Let's talk about the Muppets next time.
Let's definitely do it. Again, thank you, Theo Brown. The movie is An Electric Sleep. Please go watch it.